All right, here we go. We're going to learn how to graph circles in this video today. So we're going to start off by writing the general equation of a circle with a radius of r and a center at the point hk. All right. So the equation we would have will be x minus h, where h would represent the x coordinate of the center of the circle. And then we'd have y minus k squared, where k would represent the y coordinate of the circle right there, okay? And then we have these equal to r squared, and so we got to recognize that the radius is not r squared, but just r, right? So we're going to have to take the square root of this value so that we can actually get the circle that we need, right? So right now in the background, I got a bunch of students that are practicing graphing circles right now using a compass, right? Not one of them would ever, sneak a look at their phone or nothing like that, yeah? So I'm sure that they're getting this done. They'll be done pretty quick, all right? But in case you weren't here in class that day, this video can help you catch up, all right? So the idea for number 2 here was the equation of a circle does not describe a function. And I want you guys to know that it doesn't, because some inputs would have more than one output, right? And so it also doesn't pass the vertical line test for a function, right? So we would say, no, the equation of a circle does not describe a function because some inputs have more than one output. So pretty much every graph that you guys have drawn so far has been a function. And this is the first time that we'll be using some graphs that are not a function. So we'll jump into graphing. We can see on number 3, in this case, we have an equation, and it doesn't really have any parentheses or anything like that, right? So I just gave you guys this whole form. The general form of a circle was x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. And in this case, we don't have any numbers here, right? We just have x and y. We do have a value for r squared. In this case, r squared would be 36, right? So we got to think about is, what would happen? What would I have to plug in for h so that I could just end up with x? And what could I plug in for k so that I would just end up with y? And the answer would, of course, be 0, right? I could either put plus 0 or minus 0. Okay, but x minus 0 is just equal to x, and y minus 0 is just equal to y. So in this case, this means that the center of our circle of an equation like this, the center would be at 0, 0. So we'll put a dot at the center right here. All right, the next thing would be the radius. And to get the radius, we will have to take the square root of r squared. Again, this number, this value 36, represents the square of the radius, not the radius itself. So we take the square root of 36. And like I told you guys, this should always be a positive or negative number. But because we're drawing the length of a line segment, we have to have a positive value, right? You can't draw something with a negative length. So in this case, we'll consider just the positive 6, right? So in this case, what you should have is a circle of radius 6 that's centered at the origin. And of course, I had everybody learn how to use the compass to draw these graphs to make them as perfect as possible. But if you're doing it freehand and you don't have a compass at home, you could at least represent that by trying to make it look as much as a circle as possible. All right, so that would be how we do number 3. For number 4, you might want to check for understanding, pause the video right now and see if you could get this one on your own. And hopefully you could recognize that this is just like the last one. There's no numbers in any parentheses, and so the center will be at 0, 0. Okay, but to get the radius, I have to take the square root of 25, and the square root of 25 is 5. So in this case, the radius would be equal to 5. And so when I try to draw this circle freehand, I'm just going to try to aim for all those points and try to make a circle that passes through all of them. Alright? So, for a second we could stop to talk about what are we doing, right? Again, to graph something means to show all the points whose x and y coordinates make it true. Right, so that means that if I use the x and y coordinates of any of these points on the circle, not just these four that I'm darkening in blue, but any point on the circle, it would make this equation true. So if I was to put in, say, this point right here, this is the point 5 and 0, right? That's my x and that's my y. If I go plug in 5 squared plus 0 squared, does that equal 25? And the answer is yes, that's true, right? Because 5 squared means 5 times 5. And so like we said, that's what it means to graph something, right? It means to show all the points that make the equations true. And so obviously all the points on this blue arc I'm highlighting would also make this equation true. So we'll do one more easy example for number 5, and then we'll move on to the examples where the circles, the center is going to be somewhere else. So again, the center for this example, number 5, will be at the origin, 0, 0. But the radius would be equal to the square root of 9, right? Because r squared equals 9, so that would mean to get r would be the square root of 9, and that makes 3. All right, again, because we got to draw the length of a line segment, that means that I can't use negative 3, right? We have to only think about the positive 3. So you should have a circle of radius 3 centered at the origin for number 5. All right, so now we'll take a look at number 7. And these examples, the idea is kind of similar to what we did with parabolas. You have to change the sign. Okay, so again, this number that goes inside the parentheses with x gives us our x coordinate, and this number helps us figure out our y coordinate of the center. But we have to change the sign of it, right? So this number, we're going to change that negative 3 into a positive 3 to get our x coordinate of the center. We'll change this y value to a negative 2 to get the y coordinate of the center. And then we just make sure that we plot it correctly, right? I'm going to go from the origin to the right 3 and then down 2. And then put that point down as the center. And now to get the radius, this radius is, for us to take the square root of 9, we get positive 3 again, yeah? So in this case, I want to give myself a bunch of points to shoot for. And then draw that circle. All right? So that's pretty much the only difference is now that we have to actually move our center around, right? So we'll do another example before I let you guys try on your own. Okay, so on number 8, we have 2 positive values, and that means we'll have to change both of them, right? They both got to change signs, so that means I'll have a negative 4 and a negative 2. So we should be over here in this quadrant on the bottom left with the center. And then to find the radius, got to take the square root of 4. And the square root of 4 is 2. And that was kind of tough with the compass actually to draw the smaller circles. Unless you get like a really good compass. So I would highly recommend you guys go grab like a $15 compass or something from the store. It's a little more precise, all right? So that would be what we have for number 8. So for number 9, I'm going to recommend that you guys try this one on your own right now, see if you got the idea. Put the center, get the radius, and then graph it. If you don't have a compass, I guess you could do it, but everybody in class right now has a compass, so the circles should look pretty crispy. All right. All right, so we'll look at number 9. What would the center be for number 9, right? We have to change the value of both of those coordinates, so we'd have negative 3 and negative 4. And to get the radius, I'd have to take the square root of 9, and that gives me 3 again, right? So our center would be at the point negative 3, negative 4. So down here to the left 3 and then down 4. And then for the radius, I know it's going to go up 3, right 3, down 3. It looks like I left that off the graph a little bit, but hopefully you can see my point there. All right, I'm going to draw a circle of radius 3 centered at the point negative 3, negative 4. So hopefully that's enough for you guys to get through most of this. The last one that I'm going to do would be an example where our square root doesn't work out to be a whole number. So you guys could see that that's going to happen sometimes. We don't always have perfect numbers, right? So for the center in number 13, of course, we're going to change that -1 to a +1, and the +2 would change to a -2. So we know where our center is going to go, right here. But now to get the radius, I have to take the square root of 21. And that's something that you could do in a calculator. And so to get that value, go ahead and calculate it however you want to calculate it. Some calculators will give you like they won't give you a decimal value. So if your calculator is doing that to you, let me know. I'll help you fix it. But in this case, if you put this in your calculator, you should get 4.58257, I think, and then it keeps going on for a while. Yeah. So the big idea would be that 4.58 is like 4.5 plus like a little more. So we just want our radius to look a little bit bigger than 4.5 steps. So if I go up like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a little bit less than 4.5, right? So we got 4.5. All right, and then down 4, and you can see that again I'm going a little bit off of the graph that I made, so sorry about that. All right, and so you can see that in this case the radius is not going to go a whole unit. We're going to do a little bit more than a half, so that we can see that. And of course, I'm going to have to try to square this one up a little better. All right, so that's what happens when you get a square root that is not a perfect number. You're going to have to find a decimal value and just do your best to estimate using the compass. All right, so at this point, everybody should be working on Desmos. And this is where I'm actually going to jump into that part of the activity right now. So I think a lot of people are a little stuck on what to do there. So let me go log in like a student and see if I could get this. Alright, so on this assignment I did want you guys to model both of the arches. Okay, so you can see what I have here is an equation of this red circle, and if I take away this curly brace, you can see we have the whole circle that's drawn here, right? So I've already moved these circles around into the right position. Like if you change these numbers, you can get a value that goes to the right place, right? So I'm going to move these around a little bit, and hopefully you guys can figure out what you have to do, all right, to move them up and down, left and right, to get them in the right place, yeah? So those numbers that go in the parentheses, obviously, like we learned earlier, that gives us the center, right? But what I want to show you guys how to do right now is how to cut off the circle so that we only have a piece of it, right? So if you were to look right here at where it says 2, right? You see this 2? What I'm going to do is use a curly brace, and if I put y greater than 2, that's going to show me the part of the circle that's above 2. All right, you can see that that's what happens. It shows us the part on top of it, right? And so what I intend for you guys to do is show me the part of the circle that goes only from right here to right here, okay? I don't want to show this part of the circle that goes down there. We don't want any of that. I want you to cut that off using an inequality, and that's where you would use an expression like this, where you put y greater than some value. So you're going to have to figure out what that number is. Maybe you could look at the y-axis right there and see what that is, okay? But the idea is you should have a graph that models this part of the curve right there, okay? And not just the one in front, but also you should get the one in back, okay? So there you go. Try to use an inequality to help you do that. Let me know if you're having trouble with that. I can help you out to get that part too. All right, now for the next part, there is a next page. So if you didn't finish this in class, you should be doing this for homework, yeah? And you should be writing your equations. These things that we wrote right here on the left, these two equations that you get should go on your worksheet under A. And then for part B would be what you have for here, okay? And if you read the directions, it says model the arches in the image below. And the arches are these three ones that I have right here. Okay, and I want you to try to figure out where this is, right? So the last example, I gave you a picture. I told you what it was. In this case, I want you guys to model something, and I'm not even going to tell you where it is. I want you guys to try to do a little scavenger hunt and figure out where this place is, all right? What kind of things do you see in the background? Okay, so do a little search on Google and try to figure out the name of this little monument here. And once you figure that out, I'd like you guys to try to model these 3 arches. And again, do not give me the whole arch. Once you find a better picture, again, this picture is going to look really grainy if you zoom in on that. So find a better picture of this, and then do not show me the whole circle, right? I only want the top part, all right? That top semicircle right there, yeah? All right, so hopefully if you're at home and, you know, you're catching up, getting your homework done, all right, put down Fortnite for a second and get your homework done, huh? All right? See y'all later. Good luck on homework.